Hey, what's up everyone? Thanks for tuning back into Pro RC Crawler. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Because of our last video, you guys seen that I'm going to be building a new Sportsman vehicle. So I'm going to do a mini series. I'm going to break down the DLUX Lunatic kit. I'm going to do the front axle, the rear axle, the suspension, followed by the electronics, and then likely the body mounting. So kind of give you guys an inside look. It's not going to be exactly step by step through the whole process. Some of it will be, some of it won't. But it will give you detailed information so that if you're on the fence about building one of these vehicles, this video and the series videos coming after this one here should give you enough confidence to go ahead and buy a kit and put it together and get out there on the rocks. So again, I have no affiliation with DLUX, just something that I'm doing for the hobby in general. I am looking forward to building this kit. I've never really built a crawler kit. You know, I've raced in the past. I've taken a brand new associated buggy, comes with really nice step-by-step instruction pictures, all that information. This kit does not have that, nor have I ever put one together. So there might be some stuff in the video that changes down the road, or I might put something together incorrectly throughout the video process. I will go back and mention that I did that if I find out that I did do something wrong. But really, I'm just going to document it as I put this car together, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So enough with the talking. We're just going to get right into it. We're going to start with the front axle, and we'll go from there.
Alright, jumping into it right away. Pretty self-explanatory to put the tubes in the provided diff housings. You'll notice you have top holes on the top of both tubes, flat sides. We're going to be pointing towards the chassis. DLUX is pretty good about providing all the hardware that you need to put this bad boy together. So I'm just making sure to use some red Loctite on all the hardware. I normally use a glue stick style Loctite, but of course I go to do the recording for this video and I can't find it anywhere. So liquid will do. It usually just gets messy and you tend to put on more than you want to. So just note, if you don't have Loctite, look up the glue stick Loctite. I did watch DLUX's video on assembling the rear axle, and there is a little bit of wiggle room in the tubes to the housing. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that the flat sides are going to be as parallel as possible when you're going ahead and putting this in. So again, just putting in the 3 provided button head screws on both sides of the axle here. Alright, we'll speed this up here a little bit, get it on through. Pretty self-explanatory. All the 6 screws are in. I'm gonna go ahead and move up to the upper truss here, and the servo mount itself. You'll see it's got countersunk screws on one side. And it's gonna go in through the bottom. This has the upper 4-link mount because I ordered the axles separately. I did not order them with the kit. I believe DLUX does. If you buy the kit, they do the trimming of that link mount for you. So same deal here. There's 3 provided countersunk screws. Just go ahead and put the Loctite on there and install all 3. We got the servo mount on the cross brace there. So now we're going to go ahead and install the cross brace using the provided hardware. Same situation, go ahead and Loctite those screws. I do one on one side first and then one on the other. If you find yourself having these screws bind, it's likely because that your tubes are not aligned like I talked about earlier. That was not the case for me, so pretty simple process, just installing those screws. Once I got the hardware started, I went back through and made sure they were all nice and snug, wiped off that excess Loctite, and we're good to go. So flipped it over. We're gonna pull that front pinion cover off, and we're gonna get started on building the differential. I ordered the whole kit from DLUX, and I chose Overdrive for the front. All the bearings are included, and they're pretty self-explanatory. The larger bearing goes on the inside. The smaller bearing is going to go on the outside of the pinion. They included the locker as well, so we're going to get that ring gear slid over the locker. We're going to grab our 1.5 mil driver and add some Loctite to it. Continue on through installing all the hardware on that ring gear. All right, we're going to go ahead and finish that out. We've got all of them snug here. I'm going to speed it up to 200% here just so you guys don't fall asleep watching this. So using the provided bearings, go ahead and put each bearing on the ends of the locker. We're going to go ahead and grease the differential in the pinion up. So I'm using a 1-up grease. I use these on the race cars and liked it. You'll see that I use a paintbrush. So this just ensures a nice clean application all the way around the ring gear. Make sure that I get enough in there, but then also, you know, you're getting it on all of the teeth instead of just a gob here or a gob there. So just a nice little technique. We picked these up at I think the dollar stores. They're just super cheap brushes. I'm gonna drop that into the differential housing. I am 80% sure I have that ring gear on the right side. You can run these either way, but I believe for the high pinion setup, I do have it on correctly. So just applying the roller mount on the pinion there, and then sliding the pinion into the case. And we're gonna go ahead and snap this bad boy in. Make sure she turns smoothly. And then go ahead and install all the hardware. Once I got all four installed, just made sure that everything turned nice and smoothly. You'll see a little bit of friction when you go backwards, but that'll be fixed once you put on the drive shaft, so don't worry about that. Now we're going to grab the link mounts and go ahead and install both driver and passenger link mounts on the front axle. we've got the link mounts installed here, pretty straightforward. We're gonna move on to the 3D printed servo mount, or brace, I believe, if you will. I did notice this is a newer design. The front upper link mount has looks like the holes, the 4 holes, the 3 small and the big ones. And then this 3D printed mount also has a support that goes up and supports that the carbon fiber. So this is the most up-to-date Axial. Some of the images that I found on the website did not have these 2 pieces with the current rendition. So some things are going to be different from the older models to the new model here. So same deal, we're going to use the provided hardware. These have 2 screws that go forward facing into the front tube to hold it on, and then 1 going down through the carbon fiber into the 3D printed piece. So I'm backing out a screw here, and I'm grabbing my hardware bin, and I'm using different hardware. And I'm also having to do that on the trusses as well. And unfortunately, I end up having to take the truss off and replace the hardware that were provided with the tubes as well. What I discovered is the hardware provided was too long, and it wasn't allowing the CVDs or the dog bones to engage the locker. They were too long. So pretty much all the provided hardware for this portion was about 3 millimeters too long. Luckily, I have my own hardware here, so I went back through and put in a lot of the 6 mil hardware that it needed, just to make sure that the CVDs could clear all the way through the tubes and make the engagement into the locker itself. So I'm going to show this part, but I'm really going to speed it up. But I did want to explain why I was removing all the hardware. I don't know if this is going to be common hardware that's shipped with these axles, but I don't see that I did anything wrong or incorrect, unless you're supposed to put the CVD in first and then it just barely clears. But the hardware I use should be plenty long, and they're Loctited, so I don't foresee any issues. I went ahead and mocked up one of the knuckles already, just to make sure I was doing it correctly. Now we're going to go ahead and install the other one. I went with brass, full brass on this one. I don't know if I'm going to add additional weight or not. The aluminum has additional slugs that you can put in for tungsten. You'll see there's 2 sides to this unit here. The one with the deeper groove is going to go to the inside of the wheel. I went with 8 degrees C's on the axle. You'll find here pretty shortly that I ended up installing these wrong. So for the 0 degrees C hub, you're going to use the button head screws on the top and the countersunk on the bottom. But because I have 8 degrees, I did do this incorrectly, so I end up having to swap this out here soon. So if you're running the 8 degree setup, make sure that you use the countersunk screws on the top and the button head on the bottom. Each knuckle does get 2 flange bearings, as well as the built-in steering stops, which is going to be a button head and a little spacer that they provide. So you can see I'm installing that guy here. Steering stops are very crucial, so do not forget this step. So then we're going to go ahead and slide these on there. It's a little bit of a tight fit. Once you get it on there, it's nice and smooth. And then they're going to give you a uniball and a button head, and that uniball is going to allow the knuckle to pivot, but it does not allow the knuckle to fall off, which is super nice there. You'll see I had it upside down, but again, pretty self-explanatory once you get things. Always make sure that the knuckles steer clearly once you're all done with the assembly. And the shaft spins smooth. Alright, now we're going to move over onto the drag link section here. You're going to take your pivot balls and press them into the rod ends. I like to use a little bit of grease on the threads, and you can see if you do that, you can almost hand thread these rod ends onto the tie rod and the drag link. Makes for a pretty simple process. Some guys will use beeswax, chapstick, O-ring. I don't think it matters. Just use some sort of lubricant, and it just helps the situation. Alright, so we got all the rod ends on there. We're going to go ahead and move on installing them on the knuckle. You'll see that the driver's side does have 2 holes inside the knuckle. So we're going to use the provided screw and spacer. The long side of the drag link is going to go on there, as well as a 3mm nylock. I have this little thumb driver I like to use. Makes this super simple. Not a lot of tools needed for this whole car. I think 1.5 mil, 2.5 mil, 2 mil, and a nut driver is really all you need. As well as the pivot ball press if you don't have one of those. Now we just got to install the tie rod with the provided hardware. And the steering is pretty much good to go. Alright, so we got full movement there, and since this is the new Axial design, I want to go ahead and mock up the servo. So this NSD servo is actually going to be for my Super. I have a shift servo on the way for that, but I'm going to go ahead and just install this one. So DLUX gives you these nice offset aluminum servo mounts, and in hindsight, it might be best to mount your servo to the carbon fiber plate before you put it on the upper link mount. And that is just because there's some width variances on the servo mount itself. So you'll see here I loosen it and I'm spreading them apart a little bit, and that's just to ensure that I can get the poles lined up. Whereas if the plate wasn't actually mounted, you would be able to do that. You'd be able to mount the posts on the plate and then the servo to the plate. But being that I gotta now remove the upper truss, it's quite a lot of work, so I'm just gonna go ahead and continue this through. Okay, so we're going to put that servo horn on as well, slide the servo in, and then go ahead and secure the servo posts to the carbon fiber. So I didn't tighten the servo horn, and that's just because I'm mocking this up for you guys, since I need to use a different servo in this car. We're going to go ahead and install the drag link to the servo horn and verify that all of our steering stops are connecting correctly and that there's no binding left and right for any of the steering linkage. And it's at this point where I discovered that I did have the hardware incorrect for our knuckles, and the geometry was way off for the 8° C hubs. So I went ahead and I flipped those, and the easiest way to describe it is just put the countersink screws on the top, the button heads on the bottom, and that's going to give you correct geometry for the 8° C hubs. So from here, you just need to install your hubs. The guys over at DLUX recommended a 1.475 hub. I ordered several hubs because I don't know where I need to be. And these are awesome. They use a huge pin that goes through the hub and the 8mm CVDs or dog bones. I apologize. I don't remember the correct terminology at the time of filming this. But you'll notice here, I had a heck of a time getting the pins to push all the way through. Off the bench, the pin would go through the hub just fine, but as soon as you involve the dog bone, it would almost put it at a cockeye. I did have one of these hubs that was not machined all the way. It had a little burr as if when it was being milled out, it didn't go all the way through. Here I'm trying to just get the pin back out of the hub itself because it's just that wedged in there. This is me just kind of working through it. I will say I have these same hubs on my super lights from DLUX. I didn't have this issue. So I don't know if it's just this batch of hubs or what the situation is. I didn't try any of the other hubs that I have right now. Here I am trying to hammer the pin in. Not the best idea. But essentially you want to get the pin in flush on either side, and then you should be good to go. It's got a big grub screw that uses a 2.5mm driver at the end. Throw some Loctite on that bad boy, and you'll go on the inside. That'll hold the pin in there, and you're pretty much good to go. So the rest of this video here is me just kind of fighting these pins and working my way through it. Hopefully yours isn't that difficult. It shouldn't be, probably just a case-by-case basis. But that pretty much gives you that full assembled axle once you get these bad boys wrestled on there. So at this point, I was able to get the pins in there. You can't see with the footage of the GoPro, but the pin is somewhat crooked, and I wasn't able to get it completely flush because there's kind of a burr that is causing in there since the pin is going in sideways. And I did try it without the grub screw, so it was not that. But that pretty much sums up installation of the axle. I'm putting in the last grub screw in here. The grub screw holds that pin in there. This is such a smart design versus a small pin that always seems to break on you, but there we go. It's a full assembled axle. If you guys missed it, I'm going to go through here and just kind of show you a list of tools that you need. I did picture the 1.5mm driver, but you do need one of those. This is my 2mm driver. I use pretty much all MIP tools. Then you need a 2.5mm driver as well. You're also going to need some sort of nut driver. It's a 5.5, however you seem fit for there. And then some grease for your ring and pinion. And then you don't need this, but this is my paintbrush that I use for applying the grease. And then you're gonna need some Loctite. I chose red Loctite. It's my preferred for RCs. And then the pivot ball press here. You don't need this tool, but it just makes it easy peasy. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you for watching the first video. The next video will obviously be assembling the rear axle, and then we'll get into some of the fun stuff. So if you have any questions about what you see here, or you're just enjoying the videos, please like and subscribe. Again, we're still trying to hit that 500 subscribers, so any help you guys can do on there, share the channel, tell your friends, and thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys out on the rock soon.